Hi, it's Dr. Parikh, and I'm recording our snow day video because at one point this semester was, how are we going to fill all this time? And now, oh my gosh, there's no time. So I wanted to make sure that I went over some of the info that I had gathered, and if we have time, we'll talk about it in class. So the first thing I wanted to do was remind you where to find this because it's in a bit of an odd spot. We just kind of tacked it on to the course schedule. So here in I don't know if I share this whole box with you, but either way, if you follow the link to the schedule and just scroll down, see their schedule. And then this is where we had thrown up the topics that we wanted to work on, that we wanted to talk about this semester. I also wanted to talk a little bit about how I find these sources, because a lot of the information here I have, some of it I knew already, but a lot of it is stuff that I just Googled for. So the question is, can you just Google for it? Sorry, I'm just getting nervous now, and I want to make sure, yep, it's still recording. It gave me some trouble earlier, so I'm a little paranoid now. So I'll show you some of the searches I did. I actually didn't look at any scholarly articles for these. I was staying very, I'm going to sneeze. Oh my gosh, this is painfully boring. I'm so sorry. I don't know what to do. All right, I'll just sneeze at some point. So for this, I was staying very general. I didn't dig into any scholarly articles, but I looked for, there were certain things that I clicked on more than others. So help guide, that honestly feels like sort of a for-profit-ish, like we're just writing articles to make money off ads. So sometimes those are good, sometimes they aren't. I didn't bother to click on it. This one, at the time, I think that I thought that it was a government site from another country. Now that I look at it, it's probably not. But when I clicked on it, yeah, I'm looking through and, trying to remember why. I think partly just a lot of the information fit. So once you have a baseline of information, you can pretty quickly see whether things fit with what the rest of you're doing. This video, I think, was pretty nicely well done. And if you look at my answers, so the friendship one, I just threw all my sources down at the bottom because I mixed and matched my own way. The blended families, I went more source by source, and so I do have links that tell you where everything's from. So the next source that I use, this one, I'm not I'm not familiar with the organization. I kind of thought it was a government site when I did it. Ooh, if you look closely at the video, you can see the snow falling behind me. So I saw Gottman Institute, and I knew that that is a strong, well-respected, research-based source of information. And then I also found APA, American Psych Association, and they also write things that are very strong, very information-based. I Googled blended families functioning. What else did I also searched making blended families work. Things like HuffPost, so Huffington Post, it's an online newspaper. Excuse me. Most news sources, Huffington Post, I think I'm a little more skeptical of. They have a lot more blog type things. Bigger newspapers, I'm a little more trusting of citing their sources, but I'm always a little skeptical. And things like parents.com, I believe that's Parent Magazine. Very Well Family. Again, I'm not really familiar with what these things are. It's like Chicago Tribune. That's a pretty big newspaper. I would probably put, some trust, but not a ton. I clicked on the Scary Mommy one just because I was curious what they were saying. But Scary Mommy is one that's, it's just kind of a blog website, just people sharing their perceptions. So you might have a very well done, factually based, research based article, or you might just have someone's kind of life experience and opinions. And that may be a great fit for you, it may not. Focus on the family. I clicked on one. I thought I clicked on this one, but it's not showing up that I clicked. Uh, but whatever, I looked just out of curiosity, and it was actually a pretty well written piece that seemed pretty neutral and research based. But Focus on the Family is a Christian and I think a fairly conservative evangelical Christian group. And so that's going to affect the perception that they give of things. They may filter out certain findings or types of information, and they may add in some of their values as they're doing it. So if you know that your values and worldview fits with a particular organization, then maybe that's a good resource for you. But it's different from it being a scholarly resource. So in this case, it's for class, and so I want to make sure that I'm not getting, I want to limit how many outside values are going into what I'm telling you. I want it to be as neutral as possible. The one about how to make friends, that one was a little trickier. Business Insider, that I don't know. I'm not sure. I would look at it and be interested in what they have to say. Psychology Today is a magazine. It is not always reliable, but it's often written by people with some psychological training. So I looked at a couple of those, and they were interesting. Medium is another one where I consider it to really be more of a blog where people just write things. So again, it could be really well written. It could be completely terrible. So here, research says, yeah, they're actually citing a journal article. And it's fine, but it's just very kind of short and vague. And then I searched mental health, how to make friends, because psychology was really turning up a lot of Psychology Today sorts of things. I found something from NAMI that talked about particularly, and we had talked about social anxiety and how that can affect things. So they focus on how people with mental health concerns can look for friends. The Mighty is another one that's blogs. Mentalhealth.org.uk, that I might trust. Mental Health Partnership. So this I'm not entirely sure who's behind it. It doesn't quite look like a government site. I would guess it's similar to NAMI or maybe even APA. NAMI is the National Alliance for Mental Illness, so it's not quite a professional organization, but it's pretty well respected. So that's, when you're looking up information on this, it's important to know how to kind of filter through things. So let me start. So we'll start with initiating relationships and friendships. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Yeah, that's good enough, I think. Yeah. So the first one, when you're looking for friends, the first one is just to be around. We find that we spend the most, we are most interested in and attracted to, not physically attracted to, but just sort of interpersonally attracted to the people we see the most. So, for example, the person I talk to most on campus is Dr. Sitnick, because her office is right across the hall from mine. And so, we're in our 5th year of teaching together. We've had a lot of quick pop over across the hall conversations at this point. And so it may, I might have more in common with other people on campus or have a more similar worldview, but Dr. Sitnick's right there. And so we've spent a lot of time together. Same thing when you live in a residence hall. Often the people you're closest to are the ones on your floor, even right around your door, because that's just who you bump into the most. So just going to things, showing up. They've even done studies where strangers will just kind of sit quietly in a classroom, and sometimes they'll show up once or twice, sometimes they'll show up a lot, and they ask people to rate how friendly they are, how much someone likes them. They may have never opened their mouth in class, but just being there more often, people rate them as liking them more. So just kind of notice the people you're around a lot. Say yes to invitations. So actually show up to things. That can be really tough when you have social anxiety. or just in general, if you're, maybe not social anxiety, but just kind of a homebody, or if you have the, but I'm not going to know anyone's. But it's really just tough to make friends if you're not showing up to things. Um, you know, we often see, we have this thought that you make friends, you meet people by going to bars or clubs or going to big parties, but it doesn't have to be that way. I am not a club, bar, big party, meeting people kind of person. But there's other ways you meet people. I think in a lot of ways, one of the best ways to meet people is through volunteering, because especially if it's something where you have a lot of contact with each other. So maybe you're, sitting, like for a club, you're sitting at a table, at a bake sale table, and you've got a lot of downtime to chit chat in between things. And when you're volunteering, if it helps with some of the awkward small talk, because you have a purpose, you're doing something side by side. And you both pick the same group to volunteer with, so you have something in common. There's also, you can find online meetup groups, or there's other social media where you can find groups for people with a common interest, or you can start one. It could be a book club, a game group, a bowling league. I think to some extent what it is doesn't matter so much as just a space where you can meet people that you might like. And not every group is going to have your bestie in it, but try a few things, find someone you like. I think much like dating, it's helpful to not hold out until you find the absolutely perfect friend, but to notice that you can have lots of friends, lots of medium-sized friendships that add to your life. Any sort of community groups, I think religious organizations are great for this, especially if you don't just try to go to services, but you actually sign up for groups, volunteer to work the nursery, join the softball team, things like that. You can also look for peer support groups, which is a different field, but can still be a way to meet other people who are also specifically looking for support. And I think you can also, geek culture in particular is really good at signaling fandom and interests. For example, I have my phone right here. I have my little Harry Potter pop socket. And so that's a way, that's something that signals something about me. I'm the kind of person who likes Harry Potter. And so that can be something that brings you together. I think online groups can be great for kind of just building some loose relationships. It's not the same as in person, but it can be a nice supplement. And sometimes you can take online groups or online friendships and make them into real life friendships. Another one is just be nice. So again, these I'm kind of pulling together from several different sources. So I've just got a list of sources at the end. I didn't do this really formally and cite where everything came from. But even just smiling, and not that you have to pretend to be super happy all the time, but be aware of your face. I have resting sad face, and so I have to kind of make an effort to look a little more upbeat, or I kind of always look like maybe my puppy's not doing so well at home. Compliment others. So, people usually wear things because they like them, or, often I'll compliment people's nails if they've gotten theirs done. I am not a nail person, but I recognize that people who do get their nails done put effort into it for a reason. So be genuine, but find something that's, that you like about someone and compliment them. They like it. And I don't think that's, it doesn't have to come from a place of being fake. I think it can come from a place of being intentional. I enjoy giving people these little boosts of just small little compliments. And then the last is research suggests that we underestimate how much people like us. Most people generally like most other people, at least a little bit. So it's okay to put yourself out there a little more. Be intentional. I've talked about a little already about this. Friendships don't just magically happen. We understand with dating relationships that we have to invest time in them, and that it takes time to find the right person. And then that relationship itself needs time to build and be maintained. But we often just kind of expect friendships to materialize. And maybe that's because in grade school it seemed like that's what happened. But grade school friendships are not particularly deep and intimate emotionally. And so They're a little more easy come, easy go. Adult relationships, including friendships, take a bit more work. So plan to spend some time, plan to do some things that are uncomfortable here and there to get to the point where you find people and know people. One of the studies I didn't read the study, but one of the studies mentioned said that people who believed friendships were based on luck, so just, I just happened to get Dr. Sitnick across the hall from me, and she's a great friend of mine now because I'm lucky. And to some extent, that's true. I'm very lucky to have had Dr. Sitnick across the hall. But if you believe it's just based on luck, you're likely to be more lonely than people who believe that friendships are about things other than luck. Set measurable goals. So especially, again, if you're a bit of a homebody, you can set measurable goals. Like I don't like running outside. If I'm running in any capacity, I really need measure. I need to see like how fast I'm going. Am I going faster than last time? So I'm a very numbers driven person. So you can set measurable goals, like how many people are you going to have a conversation with? Even just how many people are you going to ask their name if you're really shy and really working on putting yourself out there. Start really basic. Or set an event to have one person that you're going to actually follow up with somehow after the event. It could be scheduling time, like putting in your planner, okay, I'm going to spend this half hour and text a couple people or call somebody or schedule coffee with someone. Or putting reminders to send cards to people. You could have a goal to go, especially if you have a lot of friends who have moved away or friends that maybe from like a traveling sports team or something where you aren't that physically close to each other. You could have goals of how often you travel to visit friends or family members who are further out. And even things like saying, hey, let's all get together on a video chat. One of my college friends suggested that this fall. And sadly, it was like over a month from when she suggested it to when we could all do it. But we did it. And there's a huge difference between doing that and not doing that. Another suggestion, there was an interesting term, triadic closure, which is where you kind of close the triangle. So instead of looking, where do you find new friends? Well, one of the first places is to chat up your friends' friends. Show interest in the other person. We've talked about this a bit. Be open and curious. Be a good listener. People really like good listeners. Balance online and in person. So I am a big believer that online relationships can be emotionally intimate and fulfilling in many ways, but I also think that there is a special sauce to having an in-person or at a minimum video chat conversation. And when you do have online interactions, think about how to make them more meaningful. So not just, liking somebody's photos, but making comments or sending messages or texting or calling. So how do you get beneath the surface, even online? If it seems like a group has already formed, it's easy to say, well, they're cliquey, they'll never let me in. But not every group is cliquey. Some groups are just very close, and so they may, some groups just don't think to intentionally welcome other people. That doesn't mean that they won't include other people. But so at least, make some efforts, try to engage, and also just even giving it time. I know I was representing our affiliate to the board for the New Jersey Psych Association, and these are a lot of people who have worked together for many years. And so it took a while before I really, during lunchtime or things, would have conversations with other people. But as I was just around more and got to know people bit by bit, now I'm very close with several of the members, even though I'm not on the board anymore. Be realistic about what's comfortable for you. So as I said, you don't have to go to bars and parties, but you do probably have to do something. You probably have to go out of your comfort zone at some point. If, like me, your comfort zone is sitting at home in your panda slippers like I am right now. But so if the bars and parties aren't going to work for you, think about what might. Another piece is dose your enthusiasm. So people, have energy, have interest, but also most relationships don't dive super deep the first minute that you meet each other. So expect things to build slowly and pace yourself. Typically, how things go is, so I share something about myself, you share something about yourself of kind of a similar level of intimacy or vulnerability. Then I go one layer deeper, you go one layer deeper. It's this kind of, I thought I looked up the word, reciprocal self-disclosure. So we reciprocate back and forth. If you notice that try to go one layer at a time. And if you notice that the other person never really goes below that surface layer, wait it, if you think there's a lot of potential there for the friendship, wait it out. If you think that it may not be a good fit, maybe that's the signal to, say, okay, that's an acquaintance, and keep looking for new relationships. Make sure that you're balancing listening and talking, and notice if either it becomes too intense for you, it's certainly okay to pull back, but also if it becomes too intense for the other person, try to notice that and pull back. And it may be that that's just too fast for that person, or like I said, not everyone's a perfect friend fit for everyone else. And just, notice every so often whether, just notice, okay, how much of the time am I talking? How much of the time is the other person talking? And notice if either of you is dominating. The goal isn't necessarily to have it be 50-50 exactly, but notice if either you're dominating or if you are not getting a chance, either feeling like you're not getting a chance to speak, or if you notice that really you're not helping with the conversation. You're just kind of going along. Or also, it's okay if you realize this person really only wants me to listen to them and never really wants to listen to me, and maybe this isn't a good balance for me. Understand cultural norms. So every culture has different rules about what sorts of things are private, how quickly you build relationships, how quickly you disclose things. I heard someone talk once about loneliness in the U.S. as a loss of refrigerator rights, the idea of how many people's houses you could go into and open the fridge without asking. And I know for me, that's not terribly many. I think especially non-family members. I can't think of any friends at this point in my life, maybe one or two, but they're friends from college that I don't see very often, where I would just open the fridge and get something out without asking. So there's cultural differences in how quickly people make friends, even within different parts of the U.S. I know I heard a story, a friend was talking about someone who had moved from Texas to New Jersey and felt that in Texas, people were very welcoming, especially when you first moved to the neighborhood. Whereas in New Jersey, she felt like she was joining groups and doing things and just nobody wanted to be friends with her. She was a member of a soccer team with my friend. And when she disclosed this is when people realized, like, oh yeah, we just assumed that you had your own thing going. So even different parts of the U.S. might have different cultures around how quickly you form friendships. I think there's also developmental norms. So I think college, early 20s, mid to mid 20s is still a time when there's quick development. I noticed this. I think it was when I was adjuncting at Montclair State. And I was sitting in like a lounge or a library or somewhere. I think a lounge somewhere with like a cafeteria. And a group of students came in and one of the students said to the other one, across the room, oh, can you get my wallet out of my purse? And that's when I realized, like, oh, I'm not 20 anymore, because I could see myself saying that when I was 20, but that just, I don't know that I would say that to very many friends now. So as you go through different developmental stages, friendship might look different. And then notice red flags. As I've kind of said a few times, you're shopping for friends also. And I think if you are waiting for the perfect fit, the friend who is never offensive, never too much, never too little, you're probably going to be lonely. Everyone has some differences, and that's okay. But to notice, for example, if somebody really only wants to talk about themselves ever, that's not great. And notice how you feel after being around the person. Does this person make you feel good? Do you feel drained? Do you feel more self-conscious? Again, if you have if you tend to feel self-conscious, if you have more social anxiety, maybe that's not a great indicator because everyone makes you feel self-conscious. And also, does this person help you be the kind of person that you want to be? And I think we talk a lot about how no extreme is good. So the extremes of everything is rainbows and unicorns and awesome is not good, but also everything is awful and a nightmare all the time and you can't be happy about anything, or you're just naive. That's not really helpful either. So someone who can let you be more in between, because that's where real life typically happens. That we've already talked about. Social anxiety. So I just added some things. I don't know that I even added, I didn't use citations. I just kind of pulled from other places. Anticipate what might happen. We talked about how that might happen with small talk. And especially difficult people. Remember, you can't outmaneuver someone, but you can practice setting boundaries. You can remember that no is a complete sentence. When you're networking for jobs, we talk a lot about elevator speech. So having this quick version of who you are, what you're looking to do, what you have to offer. But you could think about other ways to do it. And you can, especially if you know that there's, say, a family event and there's going to be a lot of sensitive questions, like when will you graduate? Do you have a job? When are you getting married? When are you having kids? When are you having another kid? As much as possible, anticipate in advance how you're going to answer, especially questions that hit on sensitive topics. Especially things around gender. So if your style of dress is different from your family, there's also a lot of sensitive questions around LGBTQ plus issues. I even saw an article talking about just kind of raising awareness of how for someone who is polyamorous, so they're in a relationship with multiple people and everybody's on board with it, how they may have to either pretend to be single or just bring one person with them for holiday dinner. So there's lots of situations where you might anticipate a more extreme or an uncomfortable setting. And so you can kind of practice how you might answer typical questions. Look for things that are going to be a better fit for you. I've talked about that. Sometimes things like coming to a party early to set up, that gives you a little bit of a purpose during the event, which can help take some of the edge off of feeling like you just have to small talk. I like to take on the fun aunt role at family gatherings. So, bring games or something to do with the kids, and that helps pass some time and kind of give me something to do. Sometimes it might even be saying I'll be the designated driver, and just kind of going along with other people's things. Again, make sure that you're not getting taken advantage of, that you're not, we'll invite Sarah and she'll take care of the kids, or that you're not in a situation where you're always being pushed to go out but only to drive. Avoid awfulizing. We kind of talked about that before. Measurable goals, similar to what we said for making friends. Notice what helps you feel better in a particular situation. Being intentional about how you're dressing. And I give a few examples. One is like, I'm going to be bold and brave. I'm going to wear something like loud and proud and very me. Or it could be, I'm just going to be cozy and comfortable, and that's fine. Or you might even say, like, I'm just going to dress very, like, neutrally so that I know that I'm going to kind of blend into the background. Like, I won't stand out in a good or a bad way. Any of these choices are fine. Just think about it. Think about what you want to do in that situation and pick what feels best. There's also some sensory considerations. So thinking about maybe having something inconspicuous to fidget with, like I fidget with my ring a lot. I'll fidget with necklaces sometimes, but the ring is one of the more sort of inconspicuous things. There's also, I put down thunder vests. That's the thing with pets, where you can get them basically just things to kind of snugly wrap around them when there's like company over or a thunderstorm, and that snug feeling helps them feel good. Well, the same thing can happen for people. So there's clothing that's meant to help give like some, just like a snug feeling. And for some people that really helps them feel more relaxed. something that, think about what makes you feel safe. If it's having like a scarf that you can kind of wrap around yourself, or a hoodie that you can put up for a little bit. Even for me, for example, I'm going to a crowded convention hall this coming weekend. I'm planning to take earplugs with me because lots of noise really overwhelms me. Loud weddings especially if there's really loud music, earplugs really help relax me because the music is just very grating for my body. I've also noticed that hats sometimes help. Something with a brim helps cut off my sensory, so I get a little less overwhelmed. It also cuts out light because I don't like too much light, but even like I have it right here, I was wearing it but took it off for this video. Even like a little cozy beanie can help just feel more relaxed. So if social anxiety is a concern, think about different things you can do that will help you, other ways you can kind of balance out some of the stress. So switching gears here, blended families. So this one I just kind of went through each site and pulled out a couple main ideas. So the first one was that one that I thought, it's an Australian organization, and I thought it was the government, and I don't think it is now. The first one is just start slow. Don't expect things to magically click into place minute one. Be clear about rules and expectations. Just try to formally say what you expect everyone in the family to do, especially with kids, but also with adults. As much as possible, tell people what to do instead of what not to do. So rather than don't ignore people, set rules like, okay, what do we want our house to be like? Okay, we say good morning when we see people. We say goodbye when we leave. And you, especially when you have kids at different levels, you want to balance fairness with developmental needs and readiness. That can be really tricky because it's not just magically tied to age. You can have two different 12-year-olds. One of them may be developmentally really ready to stay home alone and even be supervising a couple younger siblings. Another one might not even really be ready to stay home alone by themselves. And so it can be tough to have different sets of rules for different people. There's a lot of things to consider. So just kind of balance all of that as you go. Remember that each child is going to have different needs. That's going to vary based on age, personality, and even gender. There's some research that different gender children can respond to things in different ways. Try to be as consistent as you can within the household. If you can, be consistent across households. So many blended families, they have kids that go from, with one parent and another parent. Be as consistent as you can, but kids really do, they can understand that there's different sets of rules if that's made clear. Step parents really want to start off as more neutral parties. So they're not setting rules, they're not setting discipline. They are really just supporting the parent, supporting the parent's rules. And if they witness a child break the parent's rules when the parent is not around, they may, stop for safety, but really they're going to wait and talk about it with the parent and let the parent discipline as much as possible, especially the first couple years. So each person disciplines their biological leaves out kids who are adopted. So they're custodial children, the ones that they are guardians for. It can be helpful to set aside time each week for the adults to talk through parenting issues when they're calm and in private. It's really important to not jump into things when you're hot and to not contradict each other in front of kids. And then to have parenting time and also to have family time. And as much as possible, get kids' perspectives worked into what are the rules of the family? How are we going to work? So the Gottman Institute, I loved this quote from their website article. Caught up in love and having a sense of family once again, they, the new step parents, can forget that blended families are not a restoration of what once existed, but rather a brand new construction of family life. So it will never be like a family that started together from day one. It will never, you're not going back and rescuing this dream that was lost at some point. It's not a true do-over either. it's going to be different. And so recognizing that it's going to be different is important. Expect there to be lots of conflict, more conflict than in a family that's all starting together from day one. And so having positive conflict resolution styles, that is really important because that's a lot of what step parenting is conflict resolution. Be aware that there is going to be loyalty conflicts. Just naturally, people are going to be defensive of the children that they come into the relationship with, which is part of why, as much as possible, let the custodial parent be the one who is disciplining and not the step parent. There are certain times, particularly adolescents, early adolescents, like 10 to 14 especially, is a difficult time for blending families. Because at this point in the cycle, traditionally, adolescents are starting to pull away from the family. Later adolescents, in some ways, they're, 1 foot out the door already, so sure, mom can do whatever she wants. I'm going to college or moving out or really getting a lot more independent soon anyway. But 10 to 14, you're kind of still in it for the long haul, but you also are starting to pull apart. You're also having your own ideas. I think that comes up later too. So if you are blending your family, you're trying to pull people together and make new bonds at a time that adolescents are trying to feel like this family is a safe base for them to go out and explore the world and be able to come back. But now everything's kind of up in the air. So the Gottman Institute talks about emotions coaching. This idea of kind of talking, not clamping down, but helping talk adolescents through how to handle those feelings. They talk about sort of a nuclear family, so a family that starts out together being like a skillet saute, so something that cooks really quickly all together, versus a crock pot, so something that melds much more slowly over time and takes a while to get done for a blended family. So I saw different estimates. 2 to 4 years seems to be the most common estimate that I saw. It seems like, using a lot of skills and therapy can speed things up, but I think it's really tough to feel like you're really meshed as a family much before 2 years at a minimum, just because a lot of these, a lot of the things that make you feel like family are how you go through different traditions and how do we do birthdays as a family? How do we, what does end of school look like as a family? What are our summers like? What are our holidays like? And you need a couple years to really establish your family identity. Who are we? And this just takes a lot of time. So having these weekly or monthly traditions, whether it's, bowling or movie night or family game night, or we go and we volunteer somewhere, or trips, we go to different parks, whatever it is, having traditions helps give, for one, it sets aside quality time, but it also helps give a sense of identity and togetherness. In the middle of that, make sure that you are nurturing the couple relationship. So when you get married as single individuals with no children, your first couple years can really be focused on each other, you as a couple. And so when you are forming a blended family, you both have that same excitement and love and butterflies, but you also have all these other demands on your time and your energy and your attachment. So make sure that you're still budgeting time to be a couple. Make sure that you're on the same team, because it can often feel like you're defending against each other with your kids. And keep thinking back to what brought you together initially. The Gottman Institute talks a lot about that. Finally, the APA they have their own help center that has a lot of sheets that put together research-focused information. So planning for remarriage. So even before you get remarried, talk through things, financial arrangements, housing arrangements. I don't know if there's research on this, but a lot of people like moving to a new house together to kind of create neutral ground. That also creates more transitions for everybody's. But it's maybe easier than having people move in and having to try to make space for someone in a house. Financially, there's research that couples who use the one pot financial system. So we all put all of our resources together and we make decisions together on how all of those resources get used, except maybe, everybody, maybe each person gets sort of a slush fund out of that, that they report higher satisfaction. It's hard to say whether that's, so first of all, that's not everybody. It's average. So there may be, there may be some predictors of who it's going to work better for or not as well for. And I'm also curious how much of it is cause and effect, whether there's something different about a relationship when that makes the two people feel better about doing a single fund, so they do a single fund because the relationship is strong, or if it is something about the single fund and other decisions that go along with it that makes the relationship better. My spouse and I use the one pot financial system. I have a hard time imagining not doing that in my relationship. But I'm slow to say that what works for me is what's supposed to work for everybody. So I'm just I want to talk about this finding, but I'm also a little skeptical of it. Recognize how your new marriage is going to affect the prior relationship. So kids often still have this sort of hope that the parents might get back together. And even if they know that it's not true, there's still some part of their brain that might have it. And former partners might be explicitly jealous. Even if they don't want to be with you anymore, they might still have a lot of feelings about you being with someone else. And they might also have similarly had this thought that, well, maybe someday something will work out and we'll get back together. So know that this is going to affect other people around you too. Even if you're living together before getting married, marriage often signals, there's reasons we get married. Marriage signals something often to families. So you might, even if you've been living together and things have been peaceful, things may change after getting married. So talk about how each person's going to be involved with parenting. So again, we often think of marriage as being this honeymoon period where you're focused on each other, but when you have kids, you're really focused on the kids. So younger kids struggle with fears like feeling abandoned, like I'm not as special as I used to be, especially if it was just, just dad and daughter for a while and suddenly there's another person. Older teens may be really uncomfortable with thoughts about romance and sexuality, that like, I don't like the thought of this happening around me. So it's important, again, to set aside time away from kids. Parenting role is hardest with that 10 to 14 age group. So really, really, really ease into decision making. So particularly with this group, make very clear rules and boundaries. And be aware, especially between girls and stepdads, kids may be more comfortable with praise, compliments, verbal affection than physical affection. So start slow with the snuggles and the hugs and kisses. And, the relationship may add that on eventually, but especially be conscientious about that. Non-residential parents, so parents who do not have physical custody, residential custody of their children. This kind of the stereotypical situation is kids live with mom, dad gets remarried, and sadly, really often dad's visits with kids do go down. Again, this is a huge, on average, not everybody, dad's visits decrease about 50% in the first year of marriage. And so it may be important to really be intent, and this might be just we're busy, we don't realize how much they slip away. So be very intentional about scheduling special visits with kids when you're the non-residential, when you're not in the home with the kid, when you're sort of just getting visitations. If you are the residential parent, it can be really, really hard to watch this, whatever the reason. But it's still important to avoid talking negatively about a parent in front of their child. It can be harmful for kids' self-esteem, and the kid also can feel like they have to defend the parent or pretend that they're not sad because they don't want you to be mean to their parent. And APA cited, again, another 2 to 4 years for bonds to adjust. Some people say up to 7 to 10 years. 2 to 4 years seems pretty reasonable for me. So that's what I had. That went a lot longer than I thought it would. Thanks for listening. I would say write down one or two things that you might want to comment on in class, and we'll see if we can find a little time in class to chat about all of this. Thanks. Bye-bye.